Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we'll be chatting with REWS, who released their new album Meridians on October the 13th. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome to Shauna, aka REWS, to the Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely delighted to have you on. How are you this evening?
Yeah, really good. Keeping well. It's getting a bit colder now, but yes, feeling good.
Yeah, no, the nights are drawing in. Definitely, I can see the darkness outside as we speak. But that does normally mean gig season is upon us, and we've got obviously some live dates to talk about later on in the podcast. But we'll just start off with some that you've literally just played. Obviously, a couple of dates supporting Blackstone Cherry.
Yeah.
How were those two dates for you?
Oh, they're amazing. Really, really great. It was it was just such a privilege to be asked to do them. And the shows were really greatly appreciated. I think I loved doing those kind of gigs, with rock bands that are, really great rock bands. They encourage people to come early to the shows, so it just means that you actually get the same audience as the headliner, and you don't always see that. So the audience members were amazing. They really were lapping up all the music. So yeah, I had a brilliant time, and I was playing with two of my friends from Northern Ireland. Actually, they were in the lineup for that particular gig. So it was great to play with them. So all around, fantastic times. Although I
Yeah.
was a bit scared because I had lost my voice on the Friday before
Oh
the
no.
show. And yeah, so I had to take a few days just not to speak to anybody for probably about 4 days. And then thankfully it was all good for Tuesday and Wednesday, but brilliant.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, there's nothing worse, is it, when you know there's something important like that coming up and you start to feel the kind of tickle in your throat and you
Yeah, it's Sod's
panic.
Law as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
For
Um,
sure.
but yeah, I'm glad obviously it worked out really, really well. And yeah, Blackstone Cherry are a band that I think definitely encourage fans to come down early with their choice of support acts, because they always pick some really good support acts. Obviously, case in point being REWS yourself. So yeah, no, definitely. Glad that you had a good time, and obviously it leads us into obviously everything coming up. But before we get into that, I'm going to take you back just slightly, because I'm going to take you to a time that we probably should stop talking about by now. Obviously, the pandemic, and
Yeah, sure.
obviously, Warriors, your last album, was probably a prime example of a pandemic era album, in a sense of, it was released during lockdown. You had to cancel, tour dates around it. So obviously, just to set some context for obviously the good stuff coming up, what was that experience like for you, to have to go
Um,
through that?
Yeah, it was an interesting time for sure. And yeah, I think initially because, I felt like Ruse was on a bit of a trajectory in a way because I just had come off the tour with The Darkness, and then, Warriors was in the making and was just about to do that. Well, it was actually in the middle of doing a bit of a headline tour, and it seemed to be going really well. And then we had to cancel everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I think in some ways, I feel like it was a good period of time because I felt personally, I just took a bit of time to really think about what I wanted to achieve in life. And, I think everybody sort of took a bit of time to figure out what is important in life and what they want to spend their time and their energies in. Um, and I did feel a bit burnt out by doing a lot of social media sort of things that you have to do for, to promote yourself as an artist. And because at that time I was with Marshall Records, but I'm now fully independent. But I think even then I was kind of just trying to, I still had to spin a lot of plates, even though I was with the label. And yeah, I felt like it was a bit of time just to think about that, like what I was kind of trying to achieve as an artist, and how many tours I wanted to be doing, and what is my message with music, and what are my strengthening the connections with my fans. And yeah, it was really interesting time, but it did inspire me to, I just really wanted to release Warriors during that time because we did consider actually as the label and myself putting it back to when the pandemic had ended, but I just felt that people needed something to look forward to. And even though I haven't really had a chance to tour Warriors, I still feel that people were quite grateful of the time, based on the comments and things that I get from people. They seem to really appreciate it. But yeah, I don't know. I just ended up actually doing a bit of work elsewhere for a while, as a physio assistant. So I got to do something a bit different for a while. So just give me a change of perspective. So yeah, that's kind of it. But here I am now with the new album, and I've got my energy back and feeling good.
Yeah, which we're delighted to hear because absolutely loved all the pre-release singles that have come ahead of Meridians, which is out tomorrow as we speak. So obviously, yeah, you
I
must be
know,
really,
yay.
really excited tonight.
Yeah, I am so excited. I can't believe it's actually come around already. So it's yeah, flown by. But yeah,
Yeah, no, definitely, and it has flown by because the first sort of pre-release single did come out last year. Now, actually, "Breathe
yeah,
Into Me" was that first taste of new music after Warriors,
it was,
and
yeah,
I'm always fascinated because I always think the first sort of taste of new music for a new era of any band or act is an important statement, really, to
yeah.
of what is to come. So I'm always interested to know, what made you pick "Breathe Into Me" as that sort of lead single.
So I suppose at that time I had written "Breathe Into Me" before the rest of Meridians had been recorded, and that song I felt at that particular time, it was all about kind of finding your sort of inner child or your creative kind of energy again, and it was kind of yeah, it was a story about the process of during COVID and things as well. I suppose that obviously fed into it. It was actually just trying to find that little part of me that that was the creative being, and trying to figure out where I wanted to be, and yeah, breathing into that creative space again. So I thought that would be the best single to start with because it's the start of a new creative journey. So that's why I thought it'd be the best one to start with. Like it sort of creates that concept and things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it definitely works really, really well, and exactly feeds into what you were saying in relation to taking that step back in the pandemic and like taking stock of your life really, and then obviously
yeah,
coming out guns blazing out the other side with obviously "Breathe Into Me" worked really, really well. So
yeah.
yeah, definitely a great choice, and obviously the latest choice you've made is "Lock Your Horns." That's the most recent single that's come out. Um, what is the kind of themes behind "Lock Your Horns"? What can you tell us about that song?
So Lock Your Horns is all about, it's kind of a song about the music industry in some ways, actually. But it's essentially, because, it is a hard industry at times, and, it's really rewarding in many ways, but you don't, you do it because you have to love doing the thing that you do to keep doing it. And that song is really just about continue to fight for the things that you really believe in, and continue to fight through the adversity of whether it's the music industry or whether it's things that in your life that you're coming up against and you feel like you're constantly fighting. um, I just wanted to kind of hopefully inspire people to just keep the fight going, because at the end, if you just don't give up and you're doing it because it's for the right reasons, and regardless of what happens at the end, as long as your soul is happy, I think that's the main thing. You just got to keep on pushing for those things. So that's kind of the song. It's like, it's just yeah, because I've obviously been doing REWS for quite a few years now, and I love it very much. But the story was just about feeling like I just had to keep on fighting to sort of push through, and hopefully people would you know I don't know, like maybe I don't know, like I have a bit of credibility for REWS or something. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like there is a bit there, but yeah, you sometimes have to shout really loud and you know
Yeah,
lock your horns and fight all the time, and yeah, but
yeah.
it has to be a positive experience too. But yeah, that's kind of what that song's about.
Yeah, it's a really, really important message, really, and
Yeah,
obviously a relatable one and transferable one, like you say. Obviously, you've written the song about the music industry, but I think anyone could pick up that song and relate it to something going on in their
yeah,
life, a battle they've had, and the best songs work that way. I always feel.
yeah. That's it. Yeah, I know it's true. That's the way to do it. Like I just want to make sure that obviously I want to put across, like I'll be putting across the emotions that I'm experiencing or the things that I see other people going through. But I think it's really important to be engaging with people. So I try to make sure that the songs are relevant and hopefully inspiring. That's kind of one of the reasons why I do music, is because I value connection, and that's one of my core values. And I just want to be able to make sure that people feel that they get something from it. And then I as a consequence also feel something good about it as well. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, reaction is something we sometimes talk about on the podcast because it is
Yeah,
instantaneous these days. And obviously,
yeah,
I think you achieve what you set out to do with your music, definitely. And connection is a great word for it. With that instantaneous reaction, obviously on social media and things like that, have you obviously picked up on that as well from the comments that have perhaps come? How have you found that feedback?
yeah. No, it's good to, yeah. I suppose it is quite instantaneous when you get it on social media and
Yeah,
things, and it is good. I feel like it's just I always like to hear when people actually get something not quite spiritual from it, but like maybe spiritual from it. But when it's really affected people or it's helped them through something, that is something I love. It just like so nice to know. Just you're like, okay, this actually really is sort of helping people through things because life is tough and
yeah.
anything we all go through little peaks and troughs, and that's kind of, I feel music is one of those things that just it speaks to people's souls and just helps you to kind of pull through, and that's why I love it. And it's not why everybody loves it, but it's always nice to know when people get that kind of reaction. But yeah, I suppose even from live shows and things as well, it's just nice seeing people rocking out and just
Yeah.
feeling like, I love that. I went to see Blood Red Shoes last night actually, and there were two guys in front of me that were absolutely loving it so much, and I love seeing people just completely losing themselves and singing along with the music, and you just see, so it's the energy and like their whole being just becomes part of the experience, and I love seeing that even when I play as well, and also other people with other music. It's just beautiful, you know.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And Blood Red Shoes, a fantastic band who we've had on the
Yeah,
podcast as well, actually. And
yeah,
yeah, I absolutely love just going to live shows. Obviously, listen to albums because music is just a therapy to a lot of people. Certainly myself. And you obviously touched on, with Warriors, the decision you made, to put it out because people needed something, and
yeah,
absolutely at that time.
yeah.
Everyone, was struggling because no one had experienced anything like that before, and
No,
a lot of bands did sort of push music back. So I think it was a bold move and an appreciated one on
yeah.
your part that you did still go ahead and push it on with that release. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely,
that's good.
definitely.
Yeah.
And just on Lock Your Horns, I always love to touch on a music video on the podcast because I grew up watching music videos on music TV. It's not really a thing anymore, bit of a lost art.
No,
A lot of the
kind
bands
of
I talk,
sad.
it's really sad. It is really sad. A lot of the bands I talk to these days, especially over on the Discover New Music podcast that we also have,
Yeah,
um, videos, yeah, they can't afford to make a video, so a video is the first thing that gets cut from the budget, and I don't have one to talk about. But there's obviously lots of great REWS videos that listeners can check out on YouTube because that's where
yeah,
everyone checks out these things these days. And Lock Your Horns, sticking
yeah.
with that one, is again, I loved it. A great video that fits
Thank
the
you.
sort of narrative of the song so well, and such a lost art. So I love to see when things are done
Yeah.
well. And I just want to obviously ask you, how did you come up for the concept for that video and obviously put it into practice?
So whenever I was listening to the song, well, basically whenever I decided that was going to be one of the singles, I tend to just listen to the song a bit and then just try to create a metaphor for it somehow, and then I'll bring it to someone and see what they think normally. So for that one in particular, I had just actually moved back to Belfast because I've just moved back here actually, and I was on the flight actually, and I was just listening to Lock Your Horns. It's like, right, what could the video be, and who will I work with, and it just came in my head. I was like, well, it is a song about fighting, and actually, I know that there's been a lot of like focus on boxing and stuff lately, and I in no way am actually a boxer, even though it looks like I'm, throwing a few punches there. But I always loved like, this is going to sound really silly, but like watching Lara Croft in the flipping Tomb Raider movies. I always thought it was so cool seeing, the latest one. I can't remember what the actor's name, sorry, is. But when she is going to her boxing kind of sessions, and I was like, oh, I really want to get into boxing at some point. So I just thought about it, and I was like, actually, it would be really cool to do some kind of like boxing thing. And also, there's lots, there's a much bigger focus on women in sport now as well, and it's great to see. So I just thought, actually, if I could maybe do something with boxing and have it as, women in a room boxing, but then also, you're still locking your horns with someone, and then that could just represent, whoever I'm fighting. Could represent the kind of issue. Do you know what I mean? Um, but it ends up being my sister actually. So it's my
Yeah.
sister that's featured in the video. So, and it looks like we actually are punching each other, but we're not. It's funny because people were like, "Oh, fantastic for choreography," but before and after each session, it was like, right, my sister's called Emer, and I'd be like, right, Emer, I'm gonna kick to your right and punch to whatever. So we just would practice it and then take it, the shot. And then she would do the same with me. So yeah, sorry. I hope that answers your question. I realize I'm just going off on one here.
No, I absolutely love it, and yeah, it's interesting to get that sort of insights into obviously how these videos come about, because especially when it does fit so well to the obviously sort of narrative of the song itself, because quite
Yeah,
often, even when bands can make a music video these days, it's like, all right, let's just find a warehouse and just film ourselves playing the song, you know. So to
yeah,
actually get some story in a video is fantastic. So yeah.
yeah. I know it is good. I think I'd rather like I have done those live videos before, and I think they look really cool, and it's good whenever you've got more of a band. But I think because REWS is kind of, was more a band initially, and then it's just become this more revolving cast. It just makes a bit more sense to make it more. I don't know. I just want to be more creative with all the stuff and just make it an interesting video to watch. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting video to watch, and I encourage listeners to do just that, and obviously go on YouTube and check it out. And there'll be links in the bio of the obviously podcast for them to click through and do that. And obviously, with that being your latest single, it now brings us nicely onto the album, which, as we say, as we talk, is going to come out tomorrow. But as everyone listens to this, is already out. So again, encourage listeners to go and listen to it. And you touched on it already. You're obviously this is the first album you've put out independently, so I just wanted to ask, how that experience has been for you.
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually. I feel like I'm still doing a lot of the same things that I was doing prior to this, because I still always did all my social media and I don't know, coming up with the plans and what I'm doing from that perspective. But I suppose I'm working with a digital distribution company, so I'm working with Earache Records. So they're doing the digital aspect, and then my friend Shauna, she's amazing, the artist. So she created the imagery for the artwork for the album, like the album artwork essentially.
Yeah.
So we actually work together, and in some ways she's been a lifesaver because she's actually come up with all the artwork and made sure we've kind of worked backwards and forwards on what it's going to look like. But she's the one that created it, so that's actually been interesting. She's also been a big help on putting forward some of the social media like content in regards to the artwork, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I've learned a lot about like editing videos together. So like all the videos that you see online, I put together myself. And I suppose it's like, yeah, the difference in being an independent artist that you have to put a lot of time and energy and money and stuff in behind things. And I'm still learning all the time, like you have to also be a manager and a marketing expert and the artist. And you're kind of wearing all these hats, and I think it's great to know what the job entails in order for you to know what to expect from other people who would do that role, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a big learning curve in some ways because I've had to do lots of editing of videos and stuff as well, and like it's been great. But it's also, there's sometimes where you're just like, oh my god, am I actually going to get this done in time, and does it look terrible? So there's lots of yeah. I think whenever you don't have as many people to bounce off, sometimes it can be a bit more, you can live in your own head a bit, and yeah, just trying to time manage things as well. But it's been good. Like all in all, it's just been an interesting experience, learning all the bits and bobs and pitching it even for the charts and stuff. I've submitted it for the charts, and I'm hoping that I actually will chart, but we'll see. So that was a good experience to do that. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, lots of new experiences, which is
Yeah.
never a bad thing. And obviously, with that entering the charts, listeners can go on your website and obviously order copies from the website. And there's some nice bundles on there with T-shirts and other items. So I definitely, again, encourage listeners, click through in the link in the bio, go pick up a physical copy, because that's one of the ones where we talk about the music industry. I don't think general music fans perhaps recognize just how important pre-orders of albums and pre-sales for tickets, getting advanced tickets helps artists, especially independent artists. So it's a really important message, that one.
Yeah,
And
that's the thing. Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the artwork as well, actually, because I think the artwork is absolutely fantastic. And again, listeners can find a video, can't they, on your social media
Yeah.
around how it was made, which again is quite fascinating to
Yes.
see. So,
Thank
yeah,
you. That's
yeah.
hilarious. Who would have thought a photo shoot in a bath would lead to a front album cover?
Yeah, precisely. It's yeah, no, it's fascinating to see how everything gets made and all of the efforts
Yeah,
that you've had to put into to getting the album like
yeah,
physically created, musically, but then obviously all the other aspect business wise of it to get it out there. So I mean, obviously, well
yeah.
done to yourself for
Thank
putting yourself through that and getting it out there and listeners make it worthwhile and order a copy if you can. And
you. I
something
sound
else.
desperate, please. But actually, yeah, I spent so much. Anyway, that was all good.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I mean it's an important message. It is an important
Yeah,
message to it's because streaming is great and it's such a fantastic tool for fans, but obviously for
yeah,
artists, those physical sales are so important. So as we touched on the ticket sales, so obviously moving on to the live side of things,
yeah,
UK tour. And a really good UK tour as well. It's not just a case of let's do Manchester, London, maybe Birmingham, maybe
yeah,
Glasgow, and it is a really good spread out UK tour, and that starts literally kind of a week or so after the album finishes and ends up in November. So I mean,
yeah.
you must be excited to get out and play those shows, especially obviously as you didn't get to properly tour Warriors. But
Yeah.
what would you say fans should expect from these shows?
Um, I think people can expect rock and roll, baby. Just joking. It'll be really good fun. I think it's going to be full high energy. It'll be classic REWS in the sense that there will be a lot of energy and it's going to be in your face, but there's going to be a nice diverse range of some of the older stuff, but quite a bit of the new stuff on the new album. Um, there will be there will be a new lineup as there always is for every tour. But yeah, so it's going to be really fun to see how that goes. It's always a new experience for each of the shows, which is brilliant. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think like yeah, classic kind of like high energy. It's going to be fun. It's going to be I don't know interactive potentially if people are willing to get involved. Yeah, I'm really excited. I hope that
Yeah.
actually sold that. I don't know if it has or not. Oh dear.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely encourage listeners obviously to pick up a ticket and come along because I've caught the band live a few times and always a great time with REWS live. So
thank
definitely
you.
head along to a show if you can. And obviously, yeah, you touched on. I mean, we spoke earlier supporting Blackstone Cherry, and you mentioned Sport in the Darkness. Another time I've seen
Yeah,
you, and obviously, you've got considerable kind of experience out there now in obviously headline shows, supporting other acts, playing big mainstream festivals, and you spoke earlier of creating a connection.
yeah.
So is something I've been talking about on a couple of podcasts recently, and just out of interest, how you feel, if you were to offer advice to a young band on how to create a connection, because there's something that you do so well. What advice would you give to a young band?
I would say you need to definitely be yourself. You just need to speak in the way that you would normally speak to everybody. You know, like if you're putting a post up, just be you when you're delivering that, and the people who get behind you will get behind, like they'll get behind you because they love you as a person as well, and also that people just you want a genuine relationship with someone, so it needs to be two ways. It's not just about constantly, you can't have a conversation with someone if you're constantly just like telling someone something. It needs to be a two-way kind of way, so remembering that that is the case. And I think that can be really difficult whenever you're constantly just on emails or just on social media, because it is just a comment here and there. And sometimes I do fall into the kind of pit where sometimes it's like, oh, I haven't got around to replying to all the comments and stuff. And sometimes it can be difficult, but I think it's worth making that effort because, every single person has made the effort to come and listen to your music, and you need to also respect it, or just like, respond to that in some way, I think. So I think that's really
Yeah.
important. I also think it's really important to make sure after shows that you can be available for people to have a wee chat with you as well. And just actually, I think the face to face is such an important thing because you get a real big good sense for the people who are there. and you do build better relationships with people when you have a chat. So yeah, I think that's the way forward. So just treat people well and be nice and be yourself.
Yeah, and that relates to the question I asked, but it's also great life advice at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just
that's
be
true.
nice to people and be
Yeah,
yourself,
exactly.
definitely. And that brings us, I think, nicely on to the final sort of portion of the podcast. It's a question we brought in recently that we've called in the section "Magic Wand," and we've, funnily enough, touched on a few kind of issues out in the music industry as we've had this chat. And what we're doing at the moment is just asking our guests, we're going to go into Fantasyland, and I'm going to give you a magic wand, and you can change one thing, but one thing only, about the music industry. So with your magic wand, Shauna, what would you choose to change?
There are many things, but I think the main thing would be, I'm just trying to think. I think it probably would be if you were able to just fix the live music industry aspect, even though there are really great people that come to shows and things. I think for grassroots venues, and we've had our troubles obviously through the years with grassroots venues and the kind of threat for them closing over the years. But just being able to, I don't know, I suppose if there was able to be a way where there was like value placed a bit more on these places, and value placed a bit more on generally live music, um, for up and coming artists, that would be ideal. I think that, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, it,
And
it
safe
really would.
spaces, safe spaces for everybody to attend. So,
Exactly. I mean, that's always a key important thing, safe spaces.
yeah,
And the grassroots music venues that we have are so key to the ecosystem of the music industry. And obviously, I wish the big sort of corporations would recognize that a bit more. And, you're not going to get new Ed Sheerans, new Adeles, etc., without these grassroots venues,
yeah,
because all of those mega artists started down there, as it were. So it's so important that we don't lose any more. And obviously, Music Venue Trust and people like that are doing an
yeah,
absolutely fantastic job
yeah, they
supporting
are.
them. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's definitely a great choice. And if only that magic wand was real.
I
um,
know. Then we wouldn't have to worry about all the funding and stuff. It would just be, yeah. I think it's a almost a question of valuing as well. I think there's like an element of value that's sometimes not placed within the music industry. And actually, if people had to spend a week without music, what would their life be like? And I know that was a quote that went around quite a lot, but actually, genuinely, if that was the case and there's no entertainment, there's no grassroots upcoming artists, like we wouldn't have any entertainment. So yes, that is the value, and it needs to be actually valued. Anyway, sorry, I could go
yeah.
on here. Yeah,
Exactly. We could both get on our soapboxes. And
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
agree completely on the live side, 100%. But also, as we've touched on earlier in the podcast, imagine sitting through a lockdown with no music at all,
yeah.
but no new music was hard enough, for that first
No,
part. So, definitely echo the sentiments that you've put out there. So obviously, it's been absolutely fantastic running through everything with you, Shauna. And obviously, the live dates listeners need to check out Meridians, which I say as the listeners listen, will be out now. They definitely need to go and check it out. So much great stuff coming from the band. Social media is the place to stay up to date with everyone these days. We've touched on that as well. So I always give out the social handles, and those watching on YouTube, hopefully they'll pop up if my editing skills are good enough as I say them.
yeah,
So on Instagram and Twitter, it's REWS Music, and on Facebook, it's We Are REWS Music. So
yeah,
quite simple to find those ones, hopefully. And again, the links will be in the bio. So I definitely encourage listeners to pop along, give the band a follow, and obviously just stay up to date with everything coming, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more great stuff coming beyond what we've talked about as well. So thank you, Shauna, so much for joining me on the podcast. We always just give the last spotlight back to the guests and just say, what would be your final message for the listeners today?
keep rocking and keep supporting live music. And yeah, thank you so much for all of the support over the days. And please do definitely go have a look at the Meridians album. It's out tomorrow, which is probably out now, really.
Yeah,
So, yes, go and have a wee stream and let me know what you think. Oh, yeah. And thank you so much
yeah.
for that. You're a legend. I
No,
really appreciate your support.
no, absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with REWS. Do make sure you check out their new album Meridians, and of course follow the band on social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.